Thank you for joining us here on CNA938. Now today on Money Mind, we want to know what goes on in the minds of Chief Financial Officers or CFOs. You think it's all about dollars and cents, profits, sales, cash flow and the company's bottom line. And those sound very likely the kind of stuff that keeps them awake at night.
But with so much talk and emphasis in today's corporate world about digital transformation and its importance, should that not feature highly in the minds of CFOs? How much mental real estate should CFOs dedicate to IT investments and the solutions that can take the company's operations forward? Or should that be the Chief Information Officer's job?
Time to get some clarity on this from Seth Ravin, who is CEO of Rimini Street. Now, Rimini Street is a global provider of enterprise software products and services. They are the leading third-party support provider for Oracle and SAP software products and a Salesforce partner. Now, here's the background to why Seth's with us. Rimini Street had conducted a global CFO survey with more than 1,500 CFOs from 13 countries, including Singapore. Seth, welcome to CNA 938.
Thanks. Great to be here with you.
Now, Seth, what did your global CFO survey seek to uncover?
Well, I think what we showed was that the CFO and the CIO are more closely tied than a lot of people understood. All of the normal metrics that you would expect the CFO to be focused on, the financial operations of the company, the top line, the bottom line, the profitability, none of that has changed. What's changed is how they go about making that happen, along with growth and creating and pushing forward with competitive advantage. And that's where the CIO is going to be linked very closely to the CFO.
And how has the pandemic accelerated some of the changes in these roles that you talked about?
Well, what we're watching here is that the CFO has to become a little more technical savvy than they have been in the past, because the road to profitability, the road to competitive advantage and growth today is often paved through technology. Digital transformation, a term you hear a lot, which really means that we're looking inside the organization for ways to improve productivity, to use technology to reduce total costs and increase profitability. So in order to do that, the CFO is going to have to work closely with the CIO on key projects. And the pandemic's changed all of that. As terrible as the pandemic has been on a human toll, on a global basis, the reality is it has forced us years ahead in technology innovation, especially in Asia, where often business practices have been very conservative and traditional in terms of moving paper. With everybody working from home, that we had to come up with digital transformation tasks very quickly that would allow processes to work with people distributed outside the office. And governments are now taking the lead, including Japan, which has been notoriously conservative in digital transformation.
You know, talking about the CFO, I read that being financially grounded is no more enough for them, but they have to be tech savvy as well. Is that too much of an ask for CFOs? Do you consider this tectonic shifts in what's expected of them today than ever before?
Well, the reality is, while they don't have to be super technical, that is the job of the CIO and the IT department, they do need to understand that there are 4 or 5 key areas of digital transformation. One would be, for example, simple digital signatures and the ability to process documents in a digital way without having to print out and use traditional chops and stamps that are common in Asia especially. They also need to understand that machine learning and artificial intelligence are playing a bigger and bigger role in execution. They also need to understand big data and the idea that we have to take the data and sort through it for next and more advanced analytics to understand the business and buyers' behavior and how to understand what to stock before someone actually wants it on a shelf. All of these things are digital transformation items, and the CFO needs to understand those key components or they will not be able to move forward with the vision for the company to achieve those goals on growth.
What advice would you have for CFOs who are not tech savvy then? How can they go about picking up some of the knowledge that you just mentioned?
Well, I would start by meeting with my CIO and asking them for deep understanding of what they see as digital transformation and what they think that the company could benefit from and at what priority. The reality is that no company today has enough budget money in IT to do everything that the company wants in IT. I don't care if that's a small company, you're a mid-sized company, or you're one of the largest companies in the world like Apple. Everyone has a budget, and there's more to do than the budget will allow, which means the CIO and the CFO have to come together in order to look at the priorities for the company. And that prioritization, more than anything today, is all around growth and competitive advantage on a global basis. So that means partnering, learning from the CIO, and understanding what these individual items mean, like machine learning. How does that affect our business? What would be an example of how we could use that technology in our particular business? That's what a CFO is going to have to seek out from their own technical department.
Given how technology is integral to how a business will be able to, continue to generate profits and be competitive and be relevant in the digital age, do you see any risks of CIOs being made redundant just because CFOs are also, polishing up their tech skills and knowledge and ability to be savvy in those areas as well?
Or could it be the other way around?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Could the CFO be replaced by the CIO?
No, actually, they are very, very different roles, and they come to the table with different understandings and philosophies. CIOs are focused on the technology elements of the company. The CFO is focused at the financial level, but those goals have to align. The technology has to support the business goals. And this was a big change for CIOs over the last few years because the CIO rarely had a place at the table with the CFO, the CEO, in terms of deciding what the strategy is for the company. Now the CIO steps up to the table and has a critical role with technology alongside the CFO and the CEO. And so you're watching that dynamic play out, but each one has a very different role to play for the company.
And this is Money Mind on CNA938. Seth Ravin is speaking with us on Money Mind today. He is the CEO of Rimini Street, a global provider of enterprise software products and services. And we're discussing tech and why it would be of great value to have CFOs who are highly attuned to developments on this front and helping to take the company forward in this digital age. Let's delve deeper, Seth, into the results of the Global CFO Survey. Now, based on the research, how much priority did CFOs surveyed place on digital transformation for the businesses that they led?
Well, we saw, and as we suspected we would, over 80% of CIOs think that, CFOs believe that the technology and technology transformation is a top 5 initiative for the CFO and the CIO.
And what proportion of CFOs surveyed are budgeting for greater investment in technology this year as compared to last, and by how much?
Well, I think we're seeing nearly 80% of CIOs and CFOs pushing for higher spend. And again, that comes as a surprise because most people think CFOs are trying to reduce spend. But what they've noticed is that, in fact, the survey supported that CFOs are absolutely willing and want to fund digital transformation because they're now really understanding it's not a matter of spend, it's a matter of investment. And it's the investment necessary to create that competitive advantage and drive growth. So they are willing to spend more money, almost 80%.
Right. Do we know the quantum in which that increase might happen in terms of technological spend for 2021?
Well, I think, first of all, 21 is an unusual transformation year. A lot of companies were very badly hurt during the pandemic. Now that we see light coming at the end of the tunnel, that we see that we're starting to move out of it, not all the rest of the world. The U.S. is significantly ahead in vaccinations and being able to open up. But the rest of the world will follow likely in the next 6 months, which will leave open the opportunity to start rebuilding cash coffers, start spending money again because money is coming in the door. right now, a lot of companies are still on very restricted cash spend, even if they want to make investments, just because they've been weakened by the pandemic. But I would expect that to change starting in the next 6 months, and I would expect stronger spend from both the CFO pushing and the CIO after start of 2022.
What else would lead to successful digital transformation in a company? Is it enough to just throw money at the problem?
No, you have to have a mindset, and really starting with that CFO transition to understand it's not an expense, it's an investment. Then you have to really focus in on prioritization. This is what I spend a lot of time with companies and governments around the world, is helping them really understand how to prioritize spend. What will drive growth? What will reduce costs versus what are just projects that have no real return on investment in the short or medium term. And it's very important for companies to get into prioritization mode. They have to be ruthless. We've seen that the companies that survive the pandemic that will come out stronger after the pandemic are those that took very aggressive actions to control costs when they needed to control growth in terms of making sure that they're making the right investments with confidence. Those companies will emerge from the pandemic stronger, and you will see that the majority of those companies have been investing in digital transformation.
What word of comfort, Seth, would you have for CFOs who really believe in the power of investing in technology, but at the same time, there are things beyond their control, for instance, chip shortages, for instance, you've got global supply chain disruptions and such as well. What word of comfort would you have for them?
Well, I think this is a transformational time, as I said. We have an unusual situation, especially starting in the U.S. We are opening faster than we expected to. So we have supply chain challenges, shipping challenges, parts challenges, and now we have rather large inflation, 5 to 6%, the largest we've ever seen in a short period of time, because we opened up faster. Over time, I would expect that these supply chain issues will resolve themselves in the months ahead, and that will be true on a global basis as well. But we're probably in for 6 months of some unusual shortages, supply chain problems. We'll work our way through it. I'm absolutely confident of that. This is just a point in time. The economies are coming back. We expect them to come back strongly. And it's going to take a little bit to get the full supply chain, the global supply chain back working again. And hopefully we'll restore tourism and travel, which is a key part of the economies as well across the world.
Now, some of the factors you talked about to ensure a successful digital transformation, such as mindset shift, the control of costs, controlling growth, and making the right investments, would these all apply to SMEs as well?
I think so. This is across the board. I think this is a discipline issue. As the world changes as technology becomes more important, the work that we're doing in terms of helping people prioritize and optimize their spend, we're allowing people to invest in digital transformation without having to spend more money than their current budgets. And that's a critical factor of why we're doing so much work, especially in Singapore, Malaysia. We're seeing the fact that we're able to come in, help people maintain their existing budgets, but carve out more of that spend for digital transformation by optimizing and prioritizing their other spends. Because the truth is, they can't really go to the board for more budget today. That's not really a viable option. But we have to move these spends forward in the right place, and that's what we're out busy helping customers with. And it's very robust. Companies are excited, they're engaged, they're taking on new technology projects, and by taking and looking at what they're spending on, being very ruthless about that, and being honest about what drives value, they can get everything they want done for the same budget.
We're having this conversation in the wake of the release of the Global CFO Survey conducted by Rimini Street, and we're chatting with CEO of Rimini Street, Seth Ravin. Now, Seth, we also want to once again talk about the quality and the type of relationships that CFOs should have with their CIOs, and how strong a partnership can benefit the business.
Sure. I think that a strength of relationship between a CIO and a CFO is critical going forward. And I would say it's a critical success factor for businesses. If you look at where they do not have a good relationship between the CFO and the CIO, what you're going to find is that the CIO is often engaged in projects and spending that is not related to growth and competitive advantage, and therefore not moving the business forward with the business objectives. They're off doing their own thing. And that's a common factor you'll see in a bad relationship, because the CFO has certain goals financially, and the CIO is a critical player in making sure that the technology is there to support those growth initiatives and the competitive advantage.
Seth, thank you so much for speaking with us. Truly enlightening to talk about and relook the role of CFOs, especially with the future in their hands as well of the organizations that they're with. Seth Ravin is CEO of Rimini Street, and he's been filling us in on the importance of having CFOs place priority on digital transformation and IT investments, and also the sort of relationships they should have with the CIOs in their organizations. Seth, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today on CNA 938.
Thank you much.